They didn't invite me to Christmas. I found out through a photo. My mother posted it at 6:47 p.m. The whole family gathered around the table, candles lit, my sister laughing with her mouth open, my father carving the turkey. Every seat was filled, except mine. I stared at that photo for 11 minutes before my phone buzzed again. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a "we missed you." It was an invoice, $25,000. For my sister's car. My name is Renata, and this is the story of how my family tried to erase me from one photograph and forgot I still had the receipts for everything they were standing on. I'm 34. I run a small accounting consultancy out of my home office, and for the last 9 years, I've also quietly run my family's finances, not because anyone asked me to on paper, but because somebody had to. My parents, Grant and Dolores, raised my sister Priya and me in a house where love was loud but money was a mystery nobody wanted to touch. My father built a modest contracting business. My mother stayed home, then went back to teaching. And somewhere in my 20s, when my father's business hit a rough patch, I became the person who quietly fixed things. I co-signed a small business loan when the bank turned him down. I paid off 2 semesters of Priya's tuition when her scholarship fell through. I covered emergency repairs on my parents' roof after a storm, no questions asked, no timeline for repayment. I never asked for thanks, that wasn't the deal, or so I believed. Priya is 28, engaged to a man named Foster, and about to buy her first home. She's always been the golden one, the funny one, the one who just has that spark, as my mother likes to say. I've made peace with that dynamic over the years. Family isn't fair. I told myself that was fine. What I didn't expect was to find out, on Christmas Day, exactly how replaceable I'd become. It didn't happen all at once. Looking back, I can trace the pullback over almost a year. It started with small things. I wasn't looped into the group chat planning Priya's engagement party. Must have been a glitch, my mother said. Then I wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid, which stung, but I told myself weddings are complicated, and maybe Priya wanted a smaller party. Then, 3 weeks before Christmas, my mother called to check in, and somewhere in that conversation, she mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that Priya and Foster felt like family gatherings had gotten tense lately because of me, that I was too intense about money stuff, that maybe it would be good for everyone if I gave them some space this year. I asked what that meant exactly. My mother didn't really answer. She just said, "Let's not make Christmas about you, okay?" So I didn't push. I told myself I was being the bigger person. I sent gifts. I texted my dad on his birthday. I stayed quiet. What I didn't do was stop paying the third-party guarantee on my father's business loan because nobody told me to. What I didn't do was cancel the standing transfer that had, for 2 years, quietly covered a chunk of my parents' mortgage after Dad's slow season. Nobody asked me to stop, because in their minds, none of that had anything to do with me anymore. I was just supposed to disappear pleasantly. Christmas Day, I was alone in my apartment with a bowl of soup and a true crime documentary, telling myself it was fine. At 6:47 p.m., my mother posted the photo, everyone smiling, nobody looking at the empty chair that used to be mine. I sat with that for a long time. Then, at 7:02 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Priya. Not "Merry Christmas," not "We miss you." A PDF, an invoice, professionally formatted, from a used car dealership. $25,000. In the memo line, Priya's engagement car. Family contribution requested by January 15th. Underneath, a message from my mother. "We know things have been different this year, but this is important for your sister's future. We're asking everyone to pitch in what they can." Everyone. As if I were a distant cousin being asked for a favor. As if I hadn't spent 9 years being the quiet infrastructure holding up half the household finances. I didn't cry. I want to be honest about that, because I think people expect the crying part. What I felt instead was a very cold, very clear kind of clarity. The kind where your hands stop shaking because your brain has already moved past the hurt and started doing math. I didn't respond to the invoice that night. Instead, I opened my own records, the ones I'd kept meticulously, because that's who I am. The loan guarantee on my father's business, still active, still my name on it, still my credit exposed if his slow season turned into something worse. The mortgage assistance transfer, still running monthly, quietly, automatically, because nobody had ever told me to stop and I hadn't thought to ask why I still should. The dog. That one almost made me laugh. For 3 years, every time my parents travelled, I was the one who took their aging retriever, Baxter, because Priya wasn't set up for it, and my parents just felt better with me. Small thing. But it was one more thread in a rope I was still holding while everyone else had let go. I made a decision that night, sitting alone with my cold soup. If I had been quietly erased from the family, then I would quietly, formally, and completely remove every piece of support I had been providing without acknowledgement. Not out of spite, out of accuracy. If I wasn't family enough for a chair at the table, I wasn't family enough to be an invisible financial backbone either. The next morning, I called my father's bank and began the formal process to exit the loan guarantee. I contacted the mortgage servicer and cancelled the automatic transfer. I sent one text to my mother. I won't be able to contribute to Priya's car. I also need to step back from the loan guarantee on Dad's business. I'll send the paperwork. Let me know when you'd like to arrange Baxter's care going forward, since I won't be able to take him during your next trip. No accusations, no essay about being hurt, just facts, delivered in the same flat tone they'd used to send me an invoice on Christmas. The calls started within 4 days. My father called first, confused, then defensive, then quiet when he realized the loan guarantee removal was already in motion with the bank and couldn't simply be undone by a phone call. "You didn't have to do it right before the new year," he said. I told him the timing wasn't personal. It was just when I finally understood I was allowed to. My mother called next, and this call went differently than I expected. She didn't yell. She asked, almost bewildered, how long I'd been covering part of the mortgage. When I told her, there was a long silence. I don't think she'd fully known. I think, somewhere along the way, Renata's just handling it had become a fact of life nobody examined too closely. The same way nobody examined why I wasn't invited to Christmas either. Priya's message was the sharpest. She said I was punishing her for asking for help. That family was supposed to show up for each other. I told her the truth. I would have shown up, gladly, if I'd been treated like family instead of a line item that only mattered when money was owed. I told her I hoped the car worked out. I meant it. I just wasn't going to fund it invisibly while sitting alone on Christmas. What came out over the following weeks was uncomfortable for everyone. My father's business was more fragile than he'd let on. The loan guarantee wasn't a formality. It was load-bearing. The mortgage transfer wasn't extra. It was the difference between comfortable and tight. And Priya's dream car, it turned out, had already been financed on the assumption that the family, meaning me, would help absorb it. It's been 2 months. My father's business is renegotiating terms without me on the guarantee. Slower, harder, but honestly, no longer built on my invisible risk. My parents are adjusting their budget for the first time in years without quietly outsourcing the gap to me. Priya bought a smaller car. She was upset about it for a while. I think, eventually, she understood why. We're not estranged, we talk. It's careful now in a way it wasn't before. But it's honest, which it also wasn't before. My mother apologized in her own imperfect way for the Christmas photo. She said she hadn't thought it through. I believe her. I also believe that not thinking it through was exactly the problem. Here's what I've come to understand. Boundaries only mean something if they're real on both sides. My family asked for space, and I gave it to them completely. Space from the wedding planning, space from Christmas, and yes, space from being quietly responsible for things nobody wanted to acknowledge I was carrying. If I wasn't going to be at the table, I wasn't going to keep holding it up from underneath. I don't think they meant to erase me. I think it's easier to overlook the people who never make noise. I stopped being quiet, not with anger, just with clarity. And Baxter, by the way, still stays with me every time they travel. Some things really were never about the money.